The seasons and the wins never stop for Maryland. Brenda Frese here to talk all about the season that came and went and the players who are here for the reload. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every single day, showing up for us the way we show up for you 6 days a week. Over 340,000 of you listened in March 2025 alone. Just been a remarkable run with all of you. And of course, it is not just me, it is the incredible team across the board at The Next, where we cover the past, present, and future of women's basketball. TheNextHoops.com. Go check it out. Subscribe for $9 a month, $72 a year. You get all of these, over 100 reported pieces, 6 podcasts a week, direct to your inbox at TheNextHoops.com. And something we have had no shortage of through the years and will continue to is coverage of the Maryland women's basketball team, a program that Brenda Frese has built into an elite program year after year. Brenda, I feel like you were even ahead of the curve on some of the reloading, the idea, the understanding that the transfer portal is a chance to address needs and figure out a way to build a modern program. However, it does change your offseason quite a bit, doesn't it?
It really does. I guess you could say experience is the best teacher. And I think early on, a program of our magnitude, we've had transfers, some really valuable ones that have come in. And then we've also lost players that have left. So, you learn from all of it. But I think, our new normal and the transfer portal is here to stay. And I think we've just done a phenomenal job as a staff, just being able to adapt to it, understand it, really understanding what needs we have, where our strengths and our weaknesses lie. And then at the same point, I think the hardest part is just making sure you stay true to your culture. I think that's the biggest piece for us, is we never want to lose that identity and how healthy and strong our culture is, and why I feel like we've been able to sustain that level of success and excellence. So we're really selective in terms of who we go after.
When you think about how you're addressing this, is it person first and then you're looking at skills and areas, or, is that stuff just kind of interchangeable as you make those decisions? Because like you said, I mean, what are there, 12 million people in the transfer portal? So there's a lot of people to choose from as you figure it out.
There is, and I think the bigger names everyone out there knows. So I think from that end, you probably are evaluating what, who what about them, whether that's a fit. So I think when you know their games and who they are personality wise, whether that's a fit or not. So some of that you have some advanced homework on, because you've either recruited them or scouted them, or you just have a lot more information on. Then, like you said, there's so many players that are in the portal that sometimes there's names that you are unaware of, and you've really got to go do a dive and be able to make sure that you're doing your homework, and all at an accelerated pace. I think that's the hardest part, is that month of April. There's nothing like it. It's harder than anything you go through during the season, the NCAA tournament. The portal is its own beast. And so that's why we love to get to May 1st and know that we're, right there to, being able to shut it down. I'm getting on a plane on Saturday, and, you get that reset.
As you need to get, because again, and I don't think people fully understand, unless you're inside the business, inside the industry, to know how high stress coaching is, and adding that sort of extra month at the end of the year, and you on top of it are doing it at a time that you guys are always in the mix and always playing the NCAA tournament. I guess I wonder, do you like it more or less? You've obviously experienced a lot of different versions of what it is to be a head coach at a major program. you get to address things immediately that maybe are harder when you have to recruit, when you have to think in 4-year cycles. But I have to imagine that's an added challenge at the end of your year.
Oh, no question. I think, yeah, in the past, I mean, you got to kind of have a slower pace to your April
Right.
to then get into May, but it's here to stay, and so we've adapted. It's we're able to find our needs a lot sooner. You're not having to court and recruit like you do with a high school kid for years and wait for them to make a decision. This is happening in days to weeks, where sometimes you do have that body of work of a previous relationship. I think that's kind of the cool thing. A lot of players that we signed this year out of the portal were due to relationships and/or, just who we are as a program. I think, we've really been able to get, kind of re-energize those players when they want a second chance to kind of get their love back for the game and have that balance. And I think a lot of players talk to one another, and our transfers have come in here and just have had unbelievable experiences. And so that has really helped us now in the portal, because it's relationships. A lot of those players talk to each other.
And notably to me, multiple Big Ten players made the decision to come to Maryland. Folks who played, who saw what the experience was like at College Park. I don't think it was just because of the ice cream that was named after you. I'm sure that helps, but
Really ice cream.
it is very, I can attest to it. But you go beyond that, and just, understanding what it is to play at Maryland is something that folks got to experience firsthand. And so I want to start with, I was a little bit tickled by this, Gracie Merkel coming in, and I had heard about it a little bit before it happened that she was coming, and the first thing in my mind was like, oh, that's your new Bree Jones. And then I got the release from the great Rose DePaula, who we have to shout out, by the way. USBWA honored her at the Final Four. I got to applaud her. I was really excited about that. I am wearing this Orioles hat in her honor today while we do the show. But, your quote talked about Bree Jones. And so if you'll permit me to get nerdy for a moment, Gracie shot, this is sort of amazing to me, 71.6% at the rim, and almost 3/4 of her shots were at the rim. It reminded me so much of what Bree would do for you guys in, those years in the mid-20 teens. Are you sort of looking at her as somebody offense first as far as this goes, or is a bigger part of this the fact that there are bigs that you guys are going to have to contend with in the Big Ten? Obviously, Lauren Betts, the biggest name out of it, but a tremendous amount of terrific centers in the conference. Can you take me through your thinking about her?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I think the first thing with Gracie is, she knew our program. She actually had reached out to us first, and she knew our system. And when we played them, we couldn't defend her. We had no answer to her. And I think for us, like you just spoke to, we already have had a similar type player in Brianna Jones. And when you talk about someone who is that efficient and dominant in the low post and requires a double team, and watching all the different scouts and how people had to defend her, you're going to attract that around all the great pieces that we're able to add around her. And again, I think the sky's the limit for her. She wants to be elite. And when you talk about it at 6'6", and the physical piece, the defensively, she's going to be able to bring a lot against the size that we weren't able to match this year. Lauren Betts was able to do whatever she wanted against us. And then she's a tremendous screener. I think she doesn't get credit enough of what she does through, drag screens, offensive sets, out of bounds. There's just going to be a lot of things that we're going to be able to add and continue. And then we'll get her in great shape. I'm not even worried about that, because she's motivated and she's hungry and knows the pace that she's got to be able to play at, which is going to be a lot of fun this offseason.
I mean, it's exciting anytime the true five runs through the offense that you guys put together. But I just think on top of it, she's going to be playing in an offense that, last year you guys were, as usual, top 40 in the country in 3-point percentage accuracy. You guys have the ability to space the floor, and you pair her with Yarden Garzone, who I don't know that there's a better 3-point shooter in the country, north of 40%, all 3 years at Indiana, number one, but number two, the amount of threes she's taken. She's averaging, 6.5 attempts last year. Do you view those two pieces as sort of, let's say, parallel pieces in the way in which you're building the puzzle?
You do. I mean, pick your poison, because
Right.
you have to be able to stay out on Yarden, and everybody knows how. I saw her against Washington make 9 threes
Yeah.
in that game, and that's who she's been from day one. She's just an elite level scorer, and her percentages speak for itself. But then like Gracie's on the floor, you can't just defend her with one player either. So.
Mhm.
And then that doesn't even when you talk about all the other pieces that we'll have on the floor. So I do think it's exciting to think about those two, and what that's going to entail.
We were going to talk about the latest episode in the Maryland Duke rivalry. Maybe people thought it was finished when you guys moved from the ACC, but back with more with Brenda Frese. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel and the NBA playoffs. NBA is the brother league National Basketball Association for the WNBA. The NBA. NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And with about 2 weeks until the WNBA season, FanDuel can help you pass that time with the NBA playoffs together. How could $200 in bonus bets be a bad thing? And that's what you get if your first $5 bet hits. So again, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here in segment 2, Howard Megdal, Locked On Women's Basketball, and I teased obviously the Maryland Duke rivalry. It feels like yesterday to me, but obviously it's not, which I'm trying not to think about. Okay, but you guys bring in a player, Alucia Kanwa, who was absolutely dominant for Duke down the stretch. When you can bring in an ACC tournament MVP, obviously, that it's a really big piece. So I feel silly at some level talking about her third, but, what was it that you felt like made her the right fit? Because I could see sort of multiple arguments for how she works with, what you guys run.
Yeah, well, I think kind of the cool backstory with Alucia is it's someone we recruited the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It was under the radar. Have a really, really strong relationship with her high school coach, and so always was able to watch her at Duke, obviously scouting them this season when we played them, and she just everyone knows what a dynamic elite guard that she is. She just plays so hard on both ends of the floor. When you talk about from the defensive end, will probably be one of the fastest players we've ever had in our program, and athletically, offensively, to think about her in our transition, in our pace from the offensive end, and you're bringing in the most valuable player from the ACC tournament. I think that says everything you need to know in terms of just how talented of a young lady she is. But I will say this, as good as she is an elite as a basketball player, even better as a person. And I think that's what I'm really, really looking forward to, is just the fact that she's going to be a leader. Her character speaks for itself. There's a depth to her that we're going to really enjoy being able to have her in our Maryland family.
You can't replace a Shyanne Sellers ever. But when you think from the defensive side of the ball, especially, and Alucia, the thing that pops up, her steals percentage been north of 3 in her freshman and sophomore year. Do you see her as somebody who answers a lot of those questions for you when you think about you had the luxury of 4 years of Shy as a potential defensive matchup against somebody else's, I mean, frequently 1 through 4, depending on the matchup? Do you see sort of plugging her in a similar way?
I do. And, I think it really helps us as Bree McDaniel's coming back from her injury. When we lost that piece, it was a big blow during the season. We lost that energy piece. I can't wait to see the two of them together with Bree and Alucci. But it'll be a piece that, I just think about her being able to pick up full court and some of the things that she's going to be able to do for us in our press and in the half court that is really going to raise that level of play for us.
You talked about Bree, and again and again, when I had the opportunity to talk about your program down the stretch, and we talked about it through the NCAA tournament, this was a team that won 25 games and took South Carolina to the brink in the Sweet 16 without Bree McDaniel. It was such a huge part of what you do. I mean, as you reflect sort of back on it, how big a deal was it? And, how proud of your team overall are you that you were able to overcome that? Because, putting that together and doing it is one thing before the season, but to have to figure that out midway through the year when you lose her is a totally different animal.
Yeah, I think you saw. I mean, we were rolling 14 straight games and really, playing at the highest level. It was a massive blow. I still believe in my heart of hearts, had we had Bree, I think we win that game against South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I will say just, our finish. I can't say enough about the team and just the continuity, the chemistry, the trust. You think about that double overtime game with Alabama and just what that game looked like. And then with South Carolina, we were still working through Shy's injury, and Sailor Poffenberger, who was a starter for us, was, kind of a shell of herself towards the end of the season. So just, to be able to go, head to head with them and have, it comes down to possessions. And we had a couple late game possessions that didn't go our way. Otherwise we would have been moving on. So just really, really proud of the group. And just a lot of teams, like I said, would have folded when we had the injuries that we did. And we went through probably the roughest stretch of top 5 opponents between Texas and UCLA and USC, and a lot of them would have folded. And this group, all they did was just continue to put their head down and fight.
From my perspective, this is a team that was absolutely a title contender at that time. Like you said, the 14 in a row, you guys had figured out a way to reach another rung, another level. Those battles in the NCAA tournament, it felt like a battle for survival. I mean, that game against Alabama, you kind of look back and maybe it's easier when you come out on top of a game like that. But is that the most remarkable game that you coached at this program? I mean, I'm just amazing to watch.
It's got to be right up there. No question, and I think because of just what it entailed, it was win, you advance, lose, your season is over, especially for your 5 seniors that you were playing for. So,
and in front of your home fans.
Yeah. I mean, we were lucky, we had the overtime game with Ohio State leading up to that one. And then we had to top that one to the double overtime. But it definitely, I think of all my years of coaching, you remember a handful of games, and that one will rank right up there in terms of just the display. And like I said, neither team deserved to lose that game. It was an unbelievable game that to this day a lot of people were able to witness. And I said I think we had 2 of the best games in the tournament between our game with Alabama and South Carolina. And just a lot of great elite level players on the floor.
For Sarah Ashley Barker, I mean, it was a career maker in a lot of ways. I know that sort of elevated her in a lot of thinking. She was on people's radars, but went from, she was 15, 20, and then ended up going, obviously, in the first round to the Sparks, who were very excited about her. So, and that's that's one for the history books, without question about it. Before we get to second break, I do also want to talk about the fact that it speaks to the program, not just that Karen Blair, after being with you for such a long time, is on to Georgia Tech, but that you're able to hire somebody in Carly Coons who has such a track record of success. I mean, you can get a 2-time SoCon Coach of the Year to join you. That speaks to what it means to coach at Maryland. Can you kind of take me through that? Because you have a lot of continuity on your staff consistently through the years, and just sort of what you look for in a coach.
It's your most important hires are your coaches. And so, we're fortunate here that I wanted to take my time, but also make sure it was going to be the right fit for us so we can be selective. It was an opportunity for us when it presented itself with Carly. I mean, again, it's a relationship business. So my assistant, Caitlin Frotz, had worked with her, and Sarah Myers, who played for me, went and took her grad year there. And so Carly is someone I've known just through both of them for a really long time. So, it kind of started out like, what if would you consider this, to all of a sudden it became that we were having serious conversations. And what I love is just, we were looking, Karen, so happy for her. I mean, the amount of years that she's spent in the game, and definitely deserves and will do a phenomenal job. She's already showing that in the portal at Georgia Tech. And for us then being able to get someone with replacing Karen with that kind of experience, and having been a head coach, and the amount of years that she's had in the game. So feel really fortunate to be able to welcome Carly and her 3 daughters and her family to College Park.
I'm glad you mentioned Sarah Myers. I miss covering her. So
Yeah.
we're going to come back in segment 3, talk about Shyanne Sellers, whose legacy deserves its own segment. I'm here with Brenda Frese, Howard Megdal, Locked On Women's Basketball, back in just a moment. Back here, segment 3, Howard Megdal, Locked On Women's Basketball, talking to Brenda Frese about, and I didn't even still know this was possible, a player playing in the same place for 4 years. Apparently that's, but I do feel like in so many ways that says what Shyanne Sellers was for this program. And I remember you and I having a conversation relatively early on in her career, freshman or sophomore year, where she spoke to you about wanting to be coached hard, that she looked for that from you. Can you kind of take me through what it means to have somebody who is that hungry to get better as a leader on your team?
Yeah, and like you said, it is rare. You cherish when you get those 4-year players like a Shy, like a Diamond Miller, a Bree McDaniel, and you have that trust factor and the relationship that's built. I think it starts with the family. I'm going to say, Brad and Kim Sellers, just the level starts from that unit at home, and they always let me coach her hard. They understood. We lined up every year with our meetings and what her goals and dreams were, and what it was going to take. And so I think that's the thing is, you watch Shy evolve every year. She added more to her plate and whatever was required of the team. I mean, she was the ultimate team player and winner. And so really, really cool to be able to see her, be drafted, on draft night. And I think, probably some questions, with her knee when she unfortunately had a lot of that take place in that latter part of the season. But I know she's doing great as I keep checking in on her and with training camp, and we're really proud of her.
I mean, 2 parts to that, right? Number one, without the injury questions, this is an obvious first round pick and probably a lottery pick, in terms of the skill set that she brings. But number 2, is it significant that again and again we see players come through your program, end up in the pros with a set of pro-ready skills? Does it come from the way in which you coach them? Does it come from your perspective, having that goal of getting them to the WNBA on a consistent basis? Is it a combination? Because we know there are programs that coach players to maximize them in college, but they're not ready for the pros. And people come out of Maryland ready to play in the WNBA. So how does that happen?
Yeah, well, we're intentional with it. I think you can do it both ways, and we've shown that over and over. You can be really, really successful. I think our style of play with us getting up and down and the type of offense that we run prepares them for the next level. Diamond Miller shared with me in her rookie season how it was the same system, just different play calls. And that just warmed my heart to know we're doing things the right way. And then our player development, our staff is very connected, on the same page with how we develop our players. And we're in the gym a lot with them. And that's out of season, front end, back end of practices during the season. I think my philosophy, I don't run 2.5, 3 hour practices, because then we're also able to do individual development, on front end and back ends of practices. And our GMs out there, the coaches out there, they just know. I mean, we're preparing every single one of these players because they come in here with those dreams and aspirations to be pro ready. I've done them a disservice if I haven't gotten them mentally, physically, emotionally prepared for what that takes. So, sometimes there's hard conversations of how you have to act and perform and behave. But that's what, that's our job, is to help mentor them. And that's the proudest moment, is seeing all these pros that have come out of here at Maryland to be ready.
Diamond Miller, New Jersey's own, of course. I would be remiss not to point out, yes, it's a WNBA system. It's not just a WNBA system. Doing that for Cheryl Reeve and the Minnesota Lynx, who have had no small amount of success, really says a lot. Yeah, we're wishing nothing but good health for Diamond Miller, who deserves the chance to show what she is.
Yeah, she's healthy, so I think she'll have a big year.
I think so too. Well, Brenda Frese, it is always great chatting basketball with you. I'm glad you're getting some time away. You deserve it. Thank you for all your insights. To our listeners, thank you for making us your first listen every day. Be back with you tomorrow, as we are 6 days a week. Until then, I'm Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful day.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.